So the Switch Virtual Console still hasn't showed up on the Switch after over a year, which really bums me out. Before the Switch came out, the Virtual Console was one of the main reasons to be excited, as it was supposed to be bigger, better, and have a Switch GameCube Virtual Console. The Virtual Consoles for the Wii and Wii U came out really early on, but the Switch Virtual Console is taking forever. A year is a long time for a service that many have come to expect from a Nintendo console to come out, and it's one of the few major complaints I have about the system. But sometime, and probably sometime fairly soon, the Virtual Console will finally come, with some of the best games ever made in Nintendo's history. At least I really hope it's coming. But the real question is, will there be any GameCube games in the Virtual Console? Hello all 134 of you, I'm Redkwan, and will Switch GameCube Virtual Console ever happen? The GameCube is one of people's favorite Nintendo consoles, at least top 7. That's mostly because it has a handle, but some of the reason is also because of the games. The GameCube had some really good games. And not only that, it had games in long-running series that are nothing like the games in the series before or after. Mario Sunshine, Mario Kart Double Dash, and The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker were all very different but great takes on already well-established series. And games like the first 2 Metroid Primes and Pikmin's, Luigi's Mansion, Twilight Princess, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Animal Crossing, and 4 Mario parties, yes 4, added up to make the GameCube an amazing console, handle or not. The problem is that most of these GameCube games haven't come back on future systems. Both the Wii and Wii U Virtual Console skipped right over the GameCube. But with the Switch, which was heavily rumored to have it, can it finally come out? Well, first, let's look at how practical it is. There are a few practicality issues when trying to run GameCube games on the Nintendo Switch. The biggest issue is that, unlike the GameCube, the Switch doesn't have analog triggers. But as I always say, no analog triggers, no problem. I don't actually always say that, but I do think that Nintendo could work a way around it. For one, the Switch has a trigger that the GameCube didn't, so in a lot of games the full press and soft press could just be mapped to the 2 different triggers. And in some games it might be possible to use the second stick for analog control over things. Maybe that wouldn't be ideal, but at least I think it would work. Either way, I think in most cases the Switch would be able to play GameCube games in some form or another. And the Switch could easily be hooked up to a GameCube remote adapter for games that wouldn't be possible otherwise. It would probably be a big hassle though, playing your Switch on the go with a whole mess of cables so you can play your GameCube games. I guess though, if you really want to. So practically, I think GameCube Virtual Console, while it might be a bit of a pain, would probably end up working out just fine. But just because it could happen in theory, doesn't mean it will. Nintendo hasn't said anything Virtual Console related since launch, and the fact that it's taken this long to come out means that it might not come out at all, or at least not in the form that we're used to. Nintendo has said that they're going to have some retro games available to play from the NES, and that they'll have some form of online functionality with the Switch Online service. Yeah, that's something, I guess. But is that really all the Virtual Console will be? Is the Virtual Console just some watered-down, select few NES games only system to add a little bit of incentive to the Switch Online service? That would be really disappointing to me because we all know how many great games Nintendo has and could release for us to buy. But they would not be doing that just so they could sell people on buying the ability to play online. If that service is really all the Virtual Console turns out to be, then the possibility of GameCube games coming out is pretty close to 0. So let's look at the other possibility. If the classic games to go along with the online service are not what the Virtual Console has become, and the actual reason the Virtual Console has taken so long is either because Nintendo is so focused on the online service that they forgot to do anything else, or they don't want people buying all the games that would be used as an incentive for the service before the service comes out, and they're saving them for a release at the same time. Then GameCube games are still a possibility. They still face the challenge of overcoming differences with the analog triggers and other such things, and maybe changing up the coding of games to accomplish that goal wouldn't be worth the time. But I think that if Nintendo did end up making a true Virtual Console that was separate from the online service, that they would put GameCube games on it. Maybe that's just wishful thinking and I just want to play some GameCube stuff on the go, but I think that these games are old enough and definitely good enough to come back. And I think the effort to change a few little things up would definitely be worth the payoff for Nintendo. Hey, I'd buy them. Probably. I'm cheap. It can happen, people want it to happen, and it would probably make a good chunk of change. Is that a term? I think it is. The only question left is whether we'll get the true Virtual Console, or if the Switch online service is really all the Virtual Console will be. It might make sense for Nintendo to have the online service classic games as the only way to play them on the Switch, because if you can buy Super Mario Bros. 3 for $5 forever, then you lose that incentive, and that would explain why it's taken so long. But then again, maybe the reason they've added the online functionality is just to differentiate it from the actual Virtual Console. I guess we won't know until Nintendo says something. My best bet is that the Switch will end up having some form of a true Virtual Console. And because of that, I think it will also get some GameCube games at some point. I just can't see Nintendo lasting the entire lifespan of the Switch without releasing at least something separate from the online service. But I guess we'll see when Nintendo Online Service gets released in September 2018. If it doesn't get delayed again. Am I right, folks? Am I right? But yeah, the Switch Online Service and the Switch Virtual Console are taking forever. I don't know exactly what Nintendo was planning. Maybe they didn't expect the Switch to be such a big hit right out of the gate, and they thought that waiting a little bit would be okay. Or maybe they just didn't know what they were doing and weren't ready at all. But, I mean, at least if it's taking a long time, that probably means they're working on something better than they've done in the past. I don't know if it'll be terribly great, but hopefully it's something good if they've taken this long. I'm honestly not sure what I think about the whole online service thing. I definitely don't want to pay because I'm cheap. But I also think that Nintendo's online systems in the past haven't been the greatest. I probably would prefer not to have it and just have a Wii U style internet system, but I do understand where they're coming from, and $20 isn't like an outrageous price, so that's okay with me. Well, what do you think about the Switch Virtual Console online service and the possibility of GameCube games on the Switch? Anything at all, just say something. Well, anyways, I'm Redkwan. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.